All right, Fox News has this report. Real-time host Bill Maher confronted former Democratic New York Governor Andrew Cuomo on the nursing home scandal that plagued his handling of COVID. While sexual harassment allegations led to Cuomo's ousting from office in August 2021, there was a lingering controversy over his ill-fated policy in March 2020, ordering nursing homes to accept COVID patients in order to prevent overwhelming New York's hospital system. That led to the deaths of over 4,100 nursing home residents. During Friday's overtime segment on YouTube, Maher read a viewer question posed to Cuomo, asking whether he would have done anything differently during COVID. And Cuomo responded, "The short answer is no. First, this is Monday morning quarterbacking, by which I could make the New York Jets champion if we're going to do this. When COVID started, it was all the disinformation was amazing. It's coming from China, wet market." Okay, so he's saying there was disinformation, it was coming from China, and they didn't know any better. And so they did what they could with the information they had available. That's basically his answer. Now, along these same lines, we also heard in the same episode from NYU professor Scott Galloway, who was a big proponent of mandates and lockdowns and all the rest of it. And here's what he had to say about the response from people like him to COVID. Watch.
Well, I was on the board of my kid's school during COVID. I wanted a harsher lockdown policy, and in retrospect, I was wrong. The damage to kids of keeping them out of school longer was greater than the risks. But here's the bottom line. Myself, our great people, the CDC, I'd like to thank the governor, we were all operating with imperfect information, and we were doing our best. So let's learn from it. Let's learn from it. Let's hold each other accountable. But let's bring a little bit of grace and forgiveness in the show that was COVID.
Yeah. Okay, so we hear again about the need for grace and forgiveness. And as always, this calling for grace and forgiveness coming from people who would never extend it the other way to their own ideological opponents and never do. And this particular guy, I don't know anything about him. But very often with these people, you know, if they say that they should get grace and forgiveness for doing things or for calling for actions that killed people, right? In the case of Cuomo, the case of Cuomo directly killed thousands of elderly people, and the people that were pushing for lockdowns for so long, I mean, that killed people too, and taking kids and isolating them in this way. The damage that was done to those children is it's literally immeasurable. You can't measure it. You can't quantify it because they were damaged at such a deep level. And so for that, they want grace and forgiveness. But a lot of these people, if you were to ask them, you know, what about what kind of grace and forgiveness would you give to someone for, I don't know, quote unquote, misgendering a trans person? For that, destroy their lives. Get them fired, destroy their lives. But hey, if you're a governor and you did something that killed thousands of elderly people, hey, they were doing their best. He tried. That's all that counts. All right. So a couple things about this in general. First of all, if this was May of 2020, okay, if we were in May of 2020 right now, or June of 2020, and someone who advocated for lockdowns initially, a few months beforehand, that would mean, was coming out and changing their mind in May or June or July of 2020 or something like that, a few months later, then in that case, I would say, sure, okay, look, you got it wrong at first. There was a lot we didn't know initially. You were scared, whatever. Okay, but it's not May of 2020. It is the last day of October of 2023. And that's significant because a lot of these people who are asking for forgiveness and grace now, COVID amnesty or whatever you want to call it, a lot of these people, maybe all of them, were still advocating for lockdowns and mandates in June of 2020. I mean, they were pushing for it in June of 2021. Okay? So the time frame is important here. These people were pushing this for a year and a half, 2 years, even longer. You know, I remember I went to that Davidson County school board meeting in, that would have been August of 2021 to speak out against their mask mandate. And I was accused of being a homicidal, COVID-loving maniac at the time. All those many months later. So that's where I stand on this. No one is saying that everyone had to have everything figured out from the very first moment. I mean, nobody did. But when it first happened and COVID first made it here to the United States, nobody knew everything about it immediately. And no one is saying that you had to know everything about it immediately. But these people were not just pushing this tyranny in the first moment. They were pushing it in the first moment and then in every other moment after that for years. Not just weeks or months, but for years. And they weren't just pushing it. They were shouting down and trying to actively silence the people who were right and who the Scott Galloways of the world now admit were right. Except they don't really admit it, do they? Like they're saying the things that we were saying before, but he's not saying, oh, those other people were right, because that's maybe the most important detail in all this. Since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the left has lost their minds. Leftism is their religion and abortion is their official sacrament. Meanwhile, pro-life efforts, which are now more important than ever, are booming. Despite the narrative, pro-lifers have not gone away. In fact, they're getting more and more active. As one of the largest pro-life organizations in the world, no one's in a better position than 40 Days for Life to end abortions state by state. They've opened a record number of locations since Roe was overturned, and they continue to grow in volunteers. They now have 1 million volunteers in 1,500 cities. 40 Days for Life holds peaceful vigils outside abortion facilities in an effort to change hearts and minds in the most blue pro-abortion states. You can help 40 Days for Life fight ongoing legal battles to protect free speech for their volunteers by giving a tax-deductible gift of any amount at 40daysforlife.com. That's 40daysforlife.com. Before I could ever even consider forgiving one of these people, before I could ever consider giving a vote for amnesty for someone like this, and I still wouldn't, but before I could even consider it, what I would need to hear from them is not, oh, I didn't know. I didn't know. I was ignorant. I didn't know. No, I don't want to hear you didn't know. I want to hear you didn't listen, because that's what actually happened. You didn't listen. Okay, when it comes to, he was talking about shutting down schools. From the very beginning, there were many people who were saying, don't do this. You can't do this. Here's why you can't do it, and giving very intelligent reasons. One of the reasons is that COVID was not especially dangerous for children. And that is one of the things we knew about COVID basically from the beginning. There are other things we didn't know from the beginning. One of the facts that we knew from the beginning, and that was a fact that was established almost immediately and remained a fact the entire time, is that this is not especially dangerous for kids. That the flu is more dangerous for kids than COVID. We knew that right away. Scott Galloway says he didn't know. What do you didn't know? How did you not know when everyone else did? No. We knew, like we as in the universal, this was a known fact that was out there in the world. It was a knowable fact, but you didn't listen to the people who were trying to tell you. Not only did you not listen, but you went out of your way to shut them down. And so that's what I would need to hear first. But I don't think we've heard that yet, have we? We've heard for the calls for forgiveness and grace, but the people that are calling for this, they never say, hey, listen, I didn't listen to you guys. I should have listened. Okay, I should have been more humble. I didn't listen to, in fact, not only did I not listen, but I tried to shut you down. I tried to get you deplatformed. And I was wrong for doing that. And I'm sorry, and I'm not going to make that mistake again. And in the future, when the other side is telling me things that I don't want to hear, I will at least listen to them and let them speak. I don't think we've heard that from a single one of these people, have we? We haven't heard anything even close to that. Instead, all we hear is, well, nobody knew. No one could have known. Nobody could have known these things that millions of people were actually saying from the start. So this is, you can't really have, even if we wanted to talk about forgiveness, even if we were interested in forgiveness, you can't actually have forgiveness without accountability. It's because what are we forgiving exactly? You haven't actually repented of anything. And there's not any accountability. They're not holding this person accountable. So they're pretending that they are, but they actually aren't. And the reason why someone like this is never going to come out and say, hey, I should have known, but I didn't listen to you guys. He's not going to say that, because then he knows that going forward on any other topic, he's not going to be able to call for us all to be silenced on some other issue, because he'll already have admitted that, there are times when instinctively he disagrees with what we're saying, but then he turns out to be wrong. He doesn't want to admit that. And so, they can take their COVID amnesty and shove it, as far as I'm concerned. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.